صدق الله العظيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن سيدنا محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبعهم إلى يوم الدين. You know, if we look at the Quran, we find out that after, after Al-Fatiha, which is you consider the Fatiha as a preface of the Quran. So basically the first surah, which Surah Al-Baqarah, in the first verse in it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the purpose, of the Quran. And this purpose is to give us guidance to those who have taqwa, and this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Alif Lam Mim, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. This is the book in which there is no doubt, guidance for those who have taqwa, muttaqi. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also directed us on how to study the Quran to derive this guidance. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is the way to do it is by the tadabbur. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says في Surah Sad, كتاب أنزلناه إليك مبارك ليدبروا آياته وليتذكر أولو الألباب. This is a book which we have sent down to you full of blessings. So the book is full of blessing, and they should do the tadabbur of its verses, and that those of understanding may remember or may heed and reflect on its commands. And we have discussed this in the past. We said that studying the Quran actually involves 7 steps, which is the first step obviously is going to be the reading or al-qira'ah. And this is you read the words wherever you understand it or you don't understand them. The second one is the tilawah, and in the tilawah you understand what you are reading. You understand the meaning of the words and the meaning of the sentences. Then after this comes the tazkiyah, because the tazkiyah, this is the purification of your soul, because after this step now you are going to be engaged in the Quran in actually understanding and deriving the lessons from it. So the first step, the force after you purified yourself, then you go to the tartil. What's the tartil? The tartil means you assemble the verses related to a specific subject together. And then you do the tadabbur, and the tadabbur, which we're talking about here, is to try to study these verses together to try to derive a coherent understanding of the subject you are interested in, the topic in the Quran that you are interested in. And then the sixth step is the tazakkur or a dirasa or the memorization of it. And then the last step is a study, which basically the dirasa means a continuation of a serious study of the Quran. So if you want to understand the messages of the Quran, to get the guidance from the Quran, you have to reach that point of the tadabbur of the Quran, which is, is basically the step 5. And ahead of it, you have to assemble all of the verses related to what subject you want to study. So one of the things that we look at is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created this universe and put in it certain laws, what you call it Sunnah, the universal, the laws in the universe, the divine laws in the universe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have established. And these laws does not, change. Allah subhanahu, as he said in Surah Fatir, he said, فَلَن تَجِدَ لِسُنَّةِ اللَّهِ تَبْدِيلًا وَلَن تَجِدَ لِسُنَّةِ اللَّهِ تَحْوِيلًا. You will never find in the Sunnah of Allah, the Sunnah was translated as laws of Allah, any change, and Allah emphasized it again and said, you will never find in the laws of Allah any alteration. So, and scholars have said there is about 90 divine laws that you can derive from the Quran. We understand some of these laws because they vary. These laws vary from the cosmological to the social and from the materialistic to the spiritual. Now, and almost all Muslims actually recognize the divine cosmic laws, which is the Sunnah al-Kawniyya, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala identified them in many verses in the Quran. And these will be verses like you see here in Surah Yasin, لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also said, which says, neither it is for the sun to overtake the moon, nor for the night to overpass the day. Each one is floating in an orbit. So we know the sun and the moon are going in an orbit, move in an orbit. And also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said في سورة الأنبياء وهو الذي خلق الليل والنهار والشمس والقمر كل في فلك يسبحون. So Allah have created, the one who created the night and the day and the sun and the moon, each is in an orbit, floating in an orbit. One thing, if you look in the bottom, on the right-hand side, bottom of the slide, I wrote this word, kullun fi falak. And there's an interesting, an observation that if you read kullun fi falak from the right to the left or from the left to the right, they read the same. So if you read it, and that's why I made it by letter, so you can look at it and see it. It's almost like go in a circular motion. However, you go counterclockwise, you read it the same way as you go clockwise. So now in this talk, I'm going, inshallah, to try to cover one divine law that probably overlooked by most Muslims, And this actually divine law is very important because ignoring it actually is the cause of most of the anxiety, stress that we have, that we put on ourselves. So if we understand this law, it will basically relax us and make us at ease and to confront any situation that we face. Now, and this law, what is called the divine law of timing, Sunnatul Tawqit. And the divine law of timing, I'm talking about the divine law of timing. I'm not talking about the divine law of time, because there is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has also part of the cosmic laws is the time. The time, it still is a law. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, divine law of time is, as I said, is part of the cosmic law. And this, we are familiar with it because we use it as a basis to establish the time during the day and also to develop the yearly calendar. It's based on time. And the reference to this law came in several verses. One of them is Surah Yunus. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, هو الذي جعل الشمس ضياء والقمر نور وقدره منازل لتعلموا عدد السنين والحساب. He is the one who have made the sun a globe and the moon a light and determined for its stages so that you, here is the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is the time now, so that you may learn the number of years, as-sinin, and the calculation of time. And similar things for Surah Al-Isra, also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَجَعَلْنَا اللَّيْلَ وَالنَّهَارَ آيَتَيْنِ فَمَحَوْنَا آيَةَ اللَّيْلِ وَجَعَلْنَا آيَةَ النَّهَارِ مُبْصِرَةً لِتَبْتَغُوا فَضْلًا مِنْ رَبِّكُمْ وَلِتَعْلَمُوا عَدَدَ السِّنِينَ وَالْحِسَابِ وَكُلَّ شَيْءٍ فَصَّلْنَاهُ تَفْصِيلًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this Surah Al-Isra, He says, and we made the night and the day as two signs. Then we obscured the sign of the night with darkness, and we made the sign of the day bright, that you may seek bounty from your Lord, and that you may know the number of years and the calculation of time. And we have explained everything in detail with full explanation, Surah Al-Isra, which 17, verse 12. Now, but the divine law I want to talk about, not the law of time, but the law of timing. And the law of timing require, there is a prerequisite for it. Actually, it requires infinite wisdom and ultimate knowledge, not only of the present, but also of the future, and also require understanding and knowing the interactive consequences of all associated events, because when things happen, it doesn't happen in isolation of a lot of other things that get impacted with it. So obviously no one possesses this level of knowledge and wisdom other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because of our limitation, Allah's timing is very often is different than our timing. And this is the problem that we face. Our short-term interest and limited knowledge make us often rush and haste, even if this action causes harm. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warned us actually of this characteristic of haste and impatience by saying, as He said in Surah Al-Isra, وَيَدْعُ الْإِنسَانُ بِالشَّرِّ دُعَاءَهُ بِالْخَيْرِ وَكَانَ الْإِنسَانُ عَجُولًا. That the man invokes Allah for evil as he invokes Allah for good, and the man is ever hasty. So this is really some of our problem. We always are in rush. But because Allah's law of timing is very important, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have provided us with many examples in the Quran to illustrate its relevance and also to convince us that we should trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala timing, because it is always better than our timing. Our belief in the divine law of timing should actually help us develop the wisdom of being patient and avoid us from complaining, getting frustrated when things that we want are delayed. Allah's law of timing will not change for us. So this is something we have to accept. Allah's timing is not going to change. Our timing can be different, but still Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala timing is the one is going to prevail. So we better accept its existence and learn how to live with it. Now, there is many examples in the Quran that illustrate this law of timing. And we can, so in this, talk today, inshallah, I'm going to focus in two and bring two that provide different things. Different that, if you don't use Allah timing and want to implement your own timing, then there is going to be a negative consequences. So we'll give an example from the Quran, which is a negative consequence when a person acts on his timing instead of Allah's timing. And then we'll give another example which represent a superior consequence when Allah granted a person what he wants on Allah's timing and not instead of the person's timing. So we'll get two things. Allah subhanahu will allow one person to act in his timing instead of Allah, and then we'll see the consequences of it. And then we'll get another example when Allah does not allow the person to follow his own timing and will only wait until Allah's timing comes and see how the consequences will come. So the first example, to illustrate for us, actually, in the lesson we have to learn to avoid haste, when we want things to happen for us. But when I say this, because there is a danger here that people misinterpret it, this does not mean accepting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala timing and honoring Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala timing. Does it mean that we should not plan and do everything possible to achieve our goals? No, we should do everything possible we have as a human being. But what we do, we always have to let the results, the outcome of our action to Allah become according to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala timing, not to our rush and the haste to make it. So, because, even haste in trying to please Allah can cause us harm. And as we see one of examples, sometimes we want to do things because we want to do something good to be closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if we don't to follow Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala timing and accept it, then harm might come to us. So the first example I'm going to give, it's related to Sayyidina Musa, Prophet Musa. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this episode, and you can see it in the verses in Surah Taha, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave Prophet Musa an appointment for a specific time to come to him, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so can give him the Torah. But Sayyidina Musa was so anxious to talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So instead of waiting to the time when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked Musa to come, then Musa went early. So followed his own timing. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not prevent him, allowed him to happen. Maybe that is to be a lesson for us also to know. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala designates his timing, it's always the right timing. When you do try to make things move faster than what Allah designates, harm might come. So let us look how would this scenario happen. When Sayyidina Musa went ahead of time to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is everywhere, every time. So anytime you want to talk to him, but he left to meet Allah by Tur, which is the place when Sayyidina Musa talked to Allah the first time. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him, ما أعجلك عن قومك يا موسى? What have caused you to hurry and leave your people, Musa? Because that is not the time I ask you to come. So Sayyidina Musa responded to him and he said, they are just behind me, I just left them behind. I hurried toward you, my Lord, so you would be pleased. So what is the objective? Why Prophet Musa was going earlier than the time? Because to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's a noble cause. It's nothing, wrong with this. But in this case, instead of Sayyidina Musa accepting the designated time that Allah established for him, he went ahead. And that is, as I said, for something to achieve, to basically please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which I said is good. And that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us this, allows this to happen to be a lesson for us also. So let us see what happened. What Sayyidina Musa didn't know, that time, the time which is supposed to be with his people, this is the time when they need him the most. But by him leaving early, there is another timing for a test that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will subject the people of Musa to. And if Musa was there, he would have advised them, prevented them from committing the wrong. But because he left them at the wrong time, then they committed the sin. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned this to us also for Surah Taha, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he told him, I came early, so you would be pleased. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, he told him, قال فإنا قد فتنا قومك من بعدك وأضلهم السامرين. when you left that early, then we have put your people to test, and the Samiri has misguided them. Then after this, Musa got so upset, he returned to his people. فرجع موسى إلى قومه غضبان أسفا. Then Musa went back to his people angry and sad. So here, if Sayyidina Musa stayed at the time what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala designated for him, he would have stopped his people from doing the harm, from committing the sin by worshiping the calf. But because he left them early, then that was the problem that happened to them. So that teaches us that we should always accept Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala timing when we face delayed in doing something that we intend to bring us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have to accept this. There is people this year, for example, who were planning to go to Hajj this year, but they are not because of the coronavirus and all of the restriction that happened in Saudi Arabia. Now, should they be upset? Or they should have a gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala timing is not for us this year. Therefore, we should wait until the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala timing comes, and we will go where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed for us to go at a specific time. We'll go. But this year wasn't the time. Therefore, we shouldn't be upset. We shouldn't, complain about Saudi Arabia, how come they stopped the Hajj, and so on. So really, this is a great lesson for us from the example of Sayyidina Musa, to know you don't know if you go on yours what is going to happen. Bad things could happen, even if you're trying to do something to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And maybe that actually account also should help us at this time, because many people and all of us wanted to rush to open the masjid because it's closed because of the coronavirus. And that may be what is the time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants for us to open the masjid. So we rushed and opened the masjid. For why? For good reason. And then harm could come. So people, instead of complaining and saying, oh, the administration is locking the masjid, how can you do this? They should accept the reality that they are doing their best. They're waiting when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala remove this hardship from us and this epidemic from us, the masjid will be open and go again. So we accepted that, yes, even if trying to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you try to move, ahead of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala timing, harm could come. So we just take that lesson and said, respect and honor Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala timing, and don't be upset when things delayed than what you want. The second example I'm going to look to the example of when the person has his own timing, but Allah did not allow it to happen. In the verses that the recitation that I have before I started the talk, this recitation was from Surah Yusuf, and I think when I got to the first slide with the recitation, I found I misspelled Yusuf in the title wrong. So just to be careful with it. It's not Yusuf, it's Yusuf. So here, we all know this story. The Sayyidina Yusuf, has basically, he wants to be released from the prison. So what happened? There is two people with him who was in the prison, and he has been in the prison for so long, and I'm not going to say the story because you all know the story of Sayyidina Yusuf, and you want to read it in Surah Yusuf. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala presented to us this scene that here is two prisoners came to him asking him to interpret for them their dreams. And Sayyidina Yusuf interpreted the dream of one of them that he will be set free, he will be released, and told him also that he is going to be working for the king. So now Sayyidina Yusuf has the opportunity. There is a person whom he knew or he knows, and that person is going to work with the king. So obviously Sayyidina Yusuf will tell him, go tell the king about me, I am innocent, so I could be released. That was the timing that Sayyidina Yusuf wants. But we look, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَقَالَ لِلَّذِي ظَنَّ أَنَّهُ نَاجٍ مِّنْهُمَا اذْكُرْنِي عِنْدَ رَبِّكَ. So he said to the person who Sayyidina Yusuf thought that he will be released, he said, tell your Lord about me. Why? So the king can pardon him and release him from the prison. But Allah subhanahu, that wasn't the timing that Allah subhanahu wanted Sayyidina Yusuf to leave the prison. So Allah allowed the shaitan, Satan, to let this man forget. Simple request like this, you know. Allah subhanahu says, فَأَنْسَاهُ الشَّيْطَانُ ذِكْرَ رَبِّهِ فَلَبِثَ فِي السِّجْنِ بِضْعَ سِنِينَ. So the shaitan let the man forget. And the Sayyidina Yusuf lasted for the prison another several years. And the bid'a sinin always say it is something like 9 years, less than 10, but more than 5 years. So he lasted for this because the person forgot to tell the king about Sayyidina Yusuf. Now, then, you know, after these years, the king has a dream that was repeated several times. And you all studied this, you know, this dream. What the king have seen in his dream that there is 7 fat cows being eaten by 7 lean ones. And then he saw also 7 green ears of grain or corn and 7 others also ears of grain or corn that are dry. So he had been seeing this dream for several times. So he went to his people and told them, okay, interpret the dream for me. And everybody said, oh, it's a jumbled dream. We don't understand. We don't know how to interpret the dreams. So at that time, that man, the prisoner who was released, remembered, you know, that there is somebody in the prison who was able to interpret his dreams. So he told them directly, he told to the king, you know, really, you know, let me go to the prison and then I am going to get you the interpretation of the dream. So he went to the prison to Sayyidina Yusuf and told him the dream of the king about this, you know, 7 fat cows that eaten by 7 leans and the 7 green, you know, ears of grain that's, you know, and the other, the dry. Here is something, when you read the story in the Quran, it's really interesting for us. Sayyidina Yusuf knows how to interpret the dream. But would Sayyidina Yusuf now in this time come and tell that person, that prisoner that was released, well, I'm going to interpret the dream for you, but only after you go tell the king about me so he can release me? No, Sayyidina Yusuf learned his lessons. You know, he said, well, when I'm going to release at the timing that Allah subhanahu designated for me. So I'm not going to ask anybody for any help in this matter. So he told them the interpretation of the dream. And not only actually said that this is now a man that injustice have done to him. The people in Egypt, the leadership in Egypt put him in prison now for almost like, I don't know, 15, you know, years, 20 years. For no crime that he have never committed a crime. Now, what should he do? Should he just misinterpret the dream? Because he knew his interpretation of the dream can save Egypt. Could he just miss the interpretation of the dream, you know, basically give them the wrong one so they can be, all will be destroyed? No, he actually gave them the interpretation of the dream in the right way and even added to it things beyond the dream. And this is a very interesting, that you do the good for people even who do injustice to you, because you are a true Muslim. You're doing it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You are not doing it for your own sake or for some personal benefit that you have. So what Sayyidina Yusuf interpreted the dream for them, he said, okay, you are going to have, there is 7 years will come, and these 7 years will be abundant of crop you will have. And these 7 years will be followed by 7 years of drought. Will be no water, so you cannot have any production. So in the 7 years that you have good crop, eat whatever you want, but store the rest, because you are going to use it for the 7 drought years. But how you store it, this is now additional. He said, in order to store it and it doesn't get spoiled, keep the wheat on the shelves. So keep it as on, who said, it says, you know, فَذَرُوهُ فِي سُنبُلَةٍ, leave it on, you know, on their shelf when you harvest it. So it wouldn't be destroyed because you are going to store it. I said, for now, we talk about 14 years, And then when it comes to 7 years that you have to eat, from during the drought years, eat but save some. Now this is all now beyond the dream. Okay, the only interpretation of the dream, there is 7 good years, 7 bad years. Okay, then store and then eat during that time. But he said the year after, which year 15 now, it is going to be a very prosperous year. But you need the seeds. So don't eat everything in these 7 years, the drought years. Keep some of the seeds so you can plant for the good year that comes after this. So that was the interpretation, and not only interpretation, but he also giving them a technical, advice and recommendations. Beyond, as I said, beyond the dream, without setting any precondition or a pre-demand on them. For it. And he's still in the prison. So when the man went to the king and told him about the interpretation of the dream and told him the story of Sayyidina Yusuf, obviously at that time, then the king told, وَقَالَ الْمَلِكُ تُونِي بِهِ أَسْتَخْلِصْهُ لِنَفْسِي. So that's when the king said, now bring him to me, I shall employ him purely for me. I'll use him, I'm my personal advisor. فلما كلمه, then in that case, when that happened, the prisoner came to Sayyidina Yusuf, told him, no, I'm not going to go. Until the king investigates, basically my case. So we know the story, the king went to brought the women and asked them, and the women admitted he have done something wrong. We are the one who was trying to tempt him, and when he refused, we plotted against him to put him in the prison. So not only the king understood that this person is very intelligent, that he can interpret the dreams, but he also is very honest, and the grave injustice have done to him. And therefore, at that time, the king basically come and say, bring him to me now, أستخلصه لنفسي, and I'll make him my, basically personal advice. And then came when he talked, فلما كلمه قال إنك اليوم لدينا مكين أمين. That today you are with us, well placed and fully trusted. Now, there's no way you can find a person fully trusted than Sayyidina Yusuf after the king, his story and his knowledge. Then Sayyidina Yusuf asked him, he said, appoint me, and then Sayyidina Yusuf said to him, اجعلني على خزائن الأرض إني حفيظ عليهم. Now, appoint me to supervise the treasures of the land, for all of the distribution of the wheat, the storage of the wheat, taking care of it, appoint me to that position, which would be like a minister of finance and agriculture together, So the king obviously appointed him to that position. And then Allah subhanahu ended this story, and he said, وَكَذَلِكَ مَكَّنَّا لِيُوسُفَ فِي الْأَرْضِ يَتَبَوَّأُ مِنْهَا حَيْثُ يَشَاءُ. نُصِيبُ بِرَحْمَتِهِ مَن نَشَاءُ وَلَا نُضِيعُ أَجْرَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. That this way Allah, to say, we give Yusuf the power in the land, he could settle in it whether he wished. Now he has a big position. Now is probably the second highest position in Egypt at that time. Allah subhanahu gave him that position. And Allah subhanahu said, we extend our mercy on whosoever we will, and we do not let the reward of the righteous people to go to waste. So now in this case, think about it. If the man remembered, if that prisoner remembered and told the king when he got out, the prisoner who came out, told the king about Sayyidina Yusuf and how he was, injustice happened to him, and the king could have, pardoned him and let him be released. And this would have been the time that Sayyidina Yusuf was expecting to happen to him. But what would have happened if he was released? You remember Sayyidina Yusuf was a slave. If he was released, what is going to happen? He is going to go back to become a slave. Not only a slave, but the proving his innocent would not have been done. And then the people still who was released, they probably will still treat him in a bad way and don't have honor to him. But because Allah subhanahu has a different plan, different timing, for Sayyidina Yusuf. He delayed his release for several years. And as a result, he came out of that prison now as the big second most important person in Egypt and the one responsible for all of the treasure in Egypt. So which timing in this case was right or beneficial to Sayyidina Yusuf? Is his timing when he wanted to release immediately after the prisoner was released, or the timing that Allah subhanahu have decreed for him that is going to be 9 years after, or whatever the number of years after, when he is in the prison? And obviously the timing of Allah in this case was far, far better than the timing of Sayyidina Yusuf, superior actually than the timing of Sayyidina Yusuf. As I said, you know, the stories of the Quran, and this is when you do the tadabbur and reflection in the Quran. The stories in the Quran are not intended as an entertainment for us, but actually to teach us the critical divine laws of Allah subhanahu that apply it to everybody that happened before us. And in this case, in the two examples I gave, you know, there is now we understand that if Allah allowed your timing to go, it might be bad for you and most likely is going to be bad for you. But if you become patient and continue doing what you are doing your good work and following moral standards and waiting for Allah timing to come, then you will achieve a more superior, you know, outcome, and you will be grateful to Allah at that time that He didn't give you what you want at the time you wanted. So we should learn from these things that we should be patient in facing any difficulties. You know, I mean, we're not going to have any difficulties like Sayyidina Yusuf. I said how many years they have been unjustly in jail, but he didn't change his mind. They didn't corrupt his character. He still stayed fast on being a righteous person and the honorable person and the helpful person to everybody. The Quran has many actually other stories, but because of the time, maybe you can actually, hopefully that you can go and read it yourself and look at this lesson about this timing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For example, and I just mentioned, I'm going to highlight 3 here for you to look at it. You know, when you read for Surah Al-Kahf, and you look at how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the timing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed, He has Sayyidina Musa and Al-Khidr, you know, go to a village arrive at a time when there is a wall in this village just was going to be falling down. So they can fix it to protect the treasure for 2 orphans. What timing is this? That you bring in 2 people in a location at the time when a building will be collapsing so they can fix it. You can see the timing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the exact timing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you look for Surah Al-Anfal and look at the Battle of Badr and the timing with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Muslim didn't want to go for the battle. Muslim was going for something else. But look the timing for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bring them to face the others in a specific time so they would not go to the other place which they were intended to go. The other one which is also interesting is also when you read, and this is Surah Al-Qasas, Surah Taha, also related to Sayyidina Musa. Sayyidina Musa, you can learn a lot of actually lessons from his stories. You know, look at the timing that Sayyidina Musa have to meet his future wife. You know, for people who are always anxious, you know, we want our kids to get married early or whatever. I mean, when the time will, Allah time will come, they will get married to the right girl. So don't be, you know, don't worry about it. So here is Sayyidina Musa, leave Egypt, escape from Egypt, sit down by a tree at a time for his wife, future wife, to come to basically water, you know, give water to their flocks, to their sheep. And then after that, he go and meet Sayyidina Shu'aib, Prophet Shu'aib, and then in the right timing, he leaves and go in the desert and see a fire and to try to get it so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can give him the appointment that Allah, as a messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has given him this assignment. So look at, you know, at the timing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that all of the parts of the Quran, and you know also the outcome of it, how it is. And we should, therefore, we should really accept and become, you know, honor Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and be patient and don't rush and don't haste and don't be concerned when things does not come in our way. But I also leave you with this about the cautionary notes, because sometimes people say, oh, well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala timing, therefore I should not do anything, I should wait for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No, it doesn't mean this way. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala timing will come to deliver the outcome of your actions. So your role is to continue doing whatever you're planning to do. Is set your goal, establish your noble aims, and work hard and set all of the plans to do it. But don't be impatient, and you should not, be in haste or suddenly get discouraged when delays does not happen. We should accept that, basically the divine timing, that Allah timing in everything. And therefore, when it will come, it will come, And Allah subhanahu, his timing, as I said, is based on the, infinite knowledge and ultimate wisdom, but our timing will always be based on limited knowledge and our impatience. So we should be tolerant to Allah, to these delays in the impact or whatever we are doing, or if we have some person if we are sick or something happened, just to be patient. Allah subhanahu, when the recovery will come, it will come. Don't be stressed about it, and just pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah, when things will happen, it will happen. And you don't know what's the benefit, what happens if things happen faster than you want. So I'll finish with dua and then open it, inshallah. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم اهدنا فيمن هديت وعافنا فيمن عافيت وتولنا فيمن توليت وبارك اللهم لنا فيما أعطيت وقنا واصرف عنا شر ما قضيت إنك يا ربنا تقضي بالحق ولا يقضى عليك. اللهم ادخلنا برحمتك في عبادك الصالحين. اللهم اخرجنا من ظلمات الجهل والوهم إلى نور العلم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم اجعلنا ممن يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه. اللهم أوزعنا أن نشكر نعمتك التي أنعمت علينا وعلى والدينا وأن نعمل صالحا ترضاه. اللهم اصلح لنا في ذرياتنا إنا تبنا إليك وإننا من المسلمين. اللهم اكفنا بحلالك عن حرامك وبطاعتك عن معصيتك وفضلك عن من سواك. اللهم بفضلك ورحمتك عليك كلمة الحق والدين. اللهم انصر الإسلام وعز المسلمين يا أكرم الأكرمين. Oh Allah, spread your mercy upon us, shower us with your blessings, increase our knowledge, grant us forgiveness, and reward us with the company of the Firdaus al-A'la. Oh Allah, purify our heart, strengthen our faith, increase our knowledge, and make us benefit from what you have taught us. Oh Allah, forgive our parents and all the believers. Grant them your mercy, make their graves a garden from heaven, and grant the Firdaus al-A'la. Oh Allah, remedy our sick and grant them full and speedy recovery. Oh Allah, grant our son Ma'raj, the son of brother Yusuf, and all the sick relatives, our relatives and friends, a speedy and full recovery. Oh Allah, brother Munshi is going for his surgery tomorrow. Oh Allah, make her surgery successful. Oh Allah, you alone, the ultimate cure. There is no cure but yours. Oh Allah, grant them a cure that leaves nothing of injury or ailment. Oh Allah, grant the family of our sick patience and wisdom to tolerate their current trial. Oh Allah, grant us the ability to be grateful to you for your favors which you have bestowed upon us and upon our parents, and that we may do righteous deeds that are pleasing to you. Oh Allah, guide our children, protect them and make them righteous. Oh Allah, we seek from you all of the good, whether we know it or we don't, and we seek your refuge from all evil, whether we know it or we don't. Oh Allah, we ask you every name you have elected for yourself, that none of us leave this gathering, but his pains have been relieved, his worries have been removed, his debts have been paid, his weaknesses have been concealed, his sins have been forgiven, and his needs have been fulfilled. Oh Allah, you said, Id'uni astajib lakum, ask me, I'll respond to you. Oh Allah, we asking you, and you, as you have commanded us, oh Allah, accept our dua. Subhanallah wa bihamdih. عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خير المرسلين. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.